There are certain moments in British life when a nation becomes briefly united. I'm thinking about things like, I don't know, a royal funeral or a coronation or maybe a World Cup penalty shootout. That's the sort of thing that gets the whole nation going together, isn't it? Or the discovery that a cup of coffee has crossed some invisible moral boundary in terms of its price. The whole nation gets really upset about it. And then this week, there's been a lovely thing that has united the whole nation. I'm thinking of David Attenborough and his 100th birthday. That was kind of lovely, wasn't it? The way the whole nation seemed to just want to say happy birthday to Sir David. It's hard to think of anyone who has done more than him to teach us how to look. Not just to glance or to consume or to say, oh, that's nice before changing channel, but to really look. Whether it's at a bird or a beetle or the reef or the forest floor or the frozen sea or the courtship dance of some creature so improbable that you wonder whether God was working late and had become slightly giddy when he created it. Sir David's gift has not simply been knowledge, it has been wonder. He kneels beside something small and suddenly small becomes vast, doesn't it? You know, he'll look at a seed and then with a microscope turn it into a universe. With him, a lizard becomes a miracle. A patch of long grass becomes a kingdom full of life. He has spent a lifetime saying, in effect, look, and then look again. Look deeper. The world is stranger, it's richer, it's more delicate and more glorious than you ever thought. Which is not a bad sermon for Rogation Sunday. Rogation is the church's ancient way of praying for the land, the crops, the weather, the sea, the work of human hands, and the whole blessed, muddy, fragile business of being creatures in a created world. It's the day when the church remembers that food does not begin in supermarkets, and that water does not begin in our taps, and that life does not begin with us. We are not owners standing over creation with a clipboard. No, we are recipients of the gifts of creation. We are tenants of creation. We are guests. We are gardeners. We are stewards, often rather poor ones, frankly, in a world that's already alive with God. And in that same world, 2,000 years ago or thereabouts, St. Paul stood in Athens, surrounded by altars and statues. And he says to them, I see just how religious you are. That's a generous beginning. He doesn't sneer at them. But like Attenborough peering into a garden pond or something, St. Paul looks carefully. And he notices an altar built to an unknown God. And he begins there with the longing of that nation, with their uncertainty, with their honest little space, their little altar to an unknown God, left open for mystery. And that too feels like the wisdom that we need. You see, we also live among many altars, don't we? We have altars to unending economic growth, for example. We have altars of convenience, of comfort, of consumption. We have altars of certainty, altars of success, and altars of next day delivery. Some of them promise salvation with free returns. But Paul says the true God is not contained in gold and silver and stone and shrine or system or slogan. God, he says, is the one who made the world and everything in it. God gives to all creation its life and breath and all things. Or as Paul quotes approvingly, in him we live and move and have our being. If you think about it, that changes everything. If life and breath are gifts, then gratitude mustn't be a bolt-on addition to faith. Rather, gratitude is faith's bloodstream. If creation is a gift, then our treatment of the earth is not just a fashionable extra to be discussed only by people wearing expensive outdoor jackets. No, the way that we treat the earth is part of our discipleship. It's part of our worship. It is love of our neighbour extended to those who are downstream, who are downwind of us, who are not even yet born. And if God is not far from each one of us, then perhaps the world is more sacramental than we usually dare to imagine. Not because trees are God, or rivers are God, or soil is God, but because God, who is beyond all things, is also nearer than our very breath, shimmering through the life freely given and so fully given to all creation. What a beautiful story that is, isn't it? But how shall we tell this story to the world? Well, Peter, in his letter that we just heard, tells us to be ready to give an account of the hope that is within us. Yet, he says, do it with gentleness and respect. Frankly, as somebody who spends a lot of time on the internet, that line, do it with gentleness and respect, should really be printed above every keyboard in Christendom in huge letters. You know, because real hope doesn't need to shout, and truth doesn't become truer just because we're being unpleasant about it. Christian witness is not a spiritual leaf blower that blasts everyone else's opinions into next door's garden. Gentleness and respect matter because hope is not merely something we explain. It's something people should be able to see in us, in you and me, in the way that we argue, in the way that we spend our money, in the way that we forgive, in the way that we plant, in who we vote for, in how we welcome, in how we listen, in how we care. The world, frankly, doesn't need more Christians who can win a theological fight, and God knows there are plenty of them on the internet. It needs more Christians whose lives make people wonder where the light is coming from. There's something else. Never forget that we are not left to spread the Christian message of hope alone. In the gospel, Jesus tells frightened disciples, I will not leave you orphaned. That's the heart of it. You're not abandoned. You're not left to manage the future of the church or the future of the planet or the parish or the family or the future of that diagnosis or the future of your grief or the future of the lawnmower. You're not left to manage those things by sheer moral effort. Jesus says, I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate, the Spirit of truth, the presence of God within and among us, close to us as our breath. So, my brothers and sisters, rogation is not just about asking God to bless the fields, as important as that is. It's also about asking God to reteach our eyes, to see the earth as David Attenborough sees it, not as background, but as beloved. To see our daily bread not as an entitlement, but as a kind of miracle. To see our neighbours not as interruptions, but as fellow creatures held in the same divine breath. To see even the small things, the bee, the worm, the child with the little lamb's candle. Hi. The crumb of bread, the sip of wine. All of these are signs that God's world is dense with grace. Sir David Attenborough spent 100 years, give or take. He had to do some growing up first, but you know what I mean. He's given us a lifetime of helping us notice what we had nearly missed. The gospel asks us to go deeper still, to notice not only the wonder of the world, but the love from which it comes. Not only life in all its dazzling forms, but the risen Christ who says, because I live, you also will live. So, my friends, look again. There's good news all around us. It's in abundance everywhere. The world is charged with gift. The Spirit is nearer than our own breath. Christ has not left us orphaned. And somewhere in the long grass of God's creation, Alleluia is still growing. Because, Alleluia, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Alleluia.